Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So it's been a while since I've posted my last video, since I've been taking a break from my computer the last week. So I have done very minimal coding the last week or so. But here I am back again with another coding tutorial. So in this video today, we'll be building this resume builder, which I showed you guys a little demo of. I think it was 2 videos ago. And in this video, we'll be building it from scratch to finish. So let's take a look at how this works one more time before we start building it. So as you can see here, we have a bunch of inputs and we can enter in all of our information, and that's what I'm going to go do real quick. And once I've got all that filled out, I can just hit generate resume and it should take me to this new page, which is a separate component, which I'll explain later in the video. But as you can see, it transferred all of our data which we inputted from the other page and displayed it onto our resume. So here's my name right here, my age, summary, this is the contact section, and this is the bottom section here is my graduation year, and all of this is just some other miscellaneous stuff. But as you can see, everything is working, and I think this would be a really great project for all of you guys that are beginners to React. So let's get right into the video, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, so I'm in Visual Studio Code right now, and the first thing you'll want to do is go to your terminal, hit new terminal, and then go over here and type npx create react app. This command won't work if you don't have Node and React installed into your computer, so if you don't know how to do that, I have a separate video on that which I'll have linked in the description below, explaining to you guys exactly how to do so. So make sure to check that out if you need any extra help. So we'll want to run npx create react app, and then the name of our folder, which can literally be anything, which I'll just say resume builder react just to be specific, and then hit enter. This will probably take a few minutes, so I'll let that run, and once it's finished I'll be back. Okay, welcome back. So our React app has finished installing all of its necessary components and dependencies, so let's go take a look at it. So on my computer, I'm going to do Ctrl-Shift-P to open up the primary sidebar, and then I'll go to my primary folder, which I have all my projects. And sorry if you see all this mess, these are just all my previous projects from the past. So just try to ignore all that. So our folder that we just created was called Resume Builder React, which is this right here. So let's go inside of that and go inside of the source folder and go remove some unnecessary folders and files. So we don't need this app test.js file. We also don't need index.js or logo svg and report web vitals. We don't need that or that, and we don't need this either. But since we deleted some of the files, some of them were referenced in other files, so we have to go remove those import statements, or else it's going to throw off a bunch of errors. So we have to remove this import statement and this, and remove this reference as well. And let's go inside of our app.js. This logo doesn't exist anymore, so we have to get rid of that. Get rid of the header completely, and I can just keep the class name the same way it is right now. And in here I'm just going to simply type a placeholder text, something like hello world. And then after that, I'm going to go back to my terminal and do npm start to run our React app. Oh, actually, we have to do cd resume builder react. So we have to cd into that folder and then do npm start and give that a minute or so, and it should open up our React app. Alright, there we go, guys. We got our React app running, and as you can see, the hello world text is actually appearing on our browser, which means everything is working, which is great. So let's go back and finally start coding and getting our hands a little dirty. So let's start by opening up another separate terminal and then just cding into that same folder, so resume builder react, and we'll want to install a few packages. So we'll start with npm install react icons, since we'll be using icons to style up our resume, and we'll have another library called number to words, and then we'll also want to install another library called animate css, which will allow us to do some pretty cool animation effects with the library. And then our last package will be react router DOM, which is how we'll be implementing React routes into our project. And now hit enter. Alright, so just to make sure that all those packages were successfully installed, let's go to our package.json and take a look. So we have our animate css, number to words, React router DOM, And yeah, it looks like we got everything we needed. So let's start coding. So obviously first let's import React. From React, we're going to type in a pair of curly braces, and in here we're just going to do use state, use effect, and use ref. So essentially what I'm doing here is importing some of the built-in React hooks, which will make coding the rest of our project a lot easier for us. And next, let's go inside of our source folder, create another folder inside of it, a subfolder called components. Inside of this components folder, let's create a few different files, starting with the first one, which will be input item.jsx. And if these file names don't make sense to you yet, don't worry, it'll make sense eventually in the video. I'll explain each line of code and explain it to the best of my ability. So we have our input item, and then we'll have prompt user.jsx. I just prefer using the JSX extension instead of the JS extension because JSX allows you to write JSX code inside of it, and it also allows you to use the HTML boilerplate shortcut as similarly as how you would use it in an HTML file. And inside of our component, let's create another file, and we'll call it resume.jsx. So as the name says, that's where our resume will be. And we'll also have another one called non-existent page. This will act as sort of like our 404 page, since if a user visits the wrong route, then that's the component is going to render out, letting the user know that they're not at the right path. And now let's go back to our app.js and import all those files into our app.js. So let's start by importing resume from ./component/resume, and do the same for non-existent page from ./component/non-existent page. I know the process is kind of tedious, but we're just importing all the necessary files that we'll need. So now let's import some stuff from our React Router DOM library that we installed. So we'll need something called a browser router. And since it has such a long name, we're going to import it as something called a router instead, which is a much shorter name to work with. So you don't have to type out browser router every single time you want to reference this. You just have to type out router, and it'll know that you're talking about browser router. And we'll also import route and routes, so plural and singular route. And all these are coming from React Router DOM. And we might as well import use navigate, which is another sort of like hook from the React Router DOM libraries. And there's also another thing called link, which will allow you to create these links onto your browser, which the users can click onto to redirect them to another page or another one of your page components. And this will also be from React Router DOM. So let's import that, and let's import this icon name, which is called hi arrow right, and it's going to be coming from React icons/hi. And the reason why I know it's coming from the hi folder is because the icon name starts with an hi. Sometimes you'll see the icon names start with ai or something else, but in this case it's hi. So since it starts with hi, we have to go to React icons and then slash, and then go into the hi folder essentially. And also let's bring in our converter, our number to words converter. So we'll just say const converter. We're going to store it in a variable, and we'll say require number to words. So this is a similar syntax as how you would type it out in Node.js. And let's just get rid of this h1 tag, we don't really need it, and go above our return statement, and we'll start creating our first piece of state, which will store the user info. So this is going to be an object. So we'll have user info as our first variable name, and the setter function will be called set user info, since that's the standard way of using the useState hook. And this will be an object, so we have to type out a pair of curly braces. And let's do const source. And by source, I mean the image source of the profile on your resume, which we'll be fetching from an API. So we'll say const set source equals useState, and this will be a string, so I'm just going to use a pair of quotes like that. And we'll say const random underscore number equals math.floor, math.random, and I'm just going to have it pick a random number from 10,000, so 10e4, that means 10 to the 4th power, which, as most of you guys here might know, if you're in middle school or high school, that it's 10 to the 4th, which is 10,000. And let's create another variable called random alpha num. So this is going to be converter. We're using our converter that we imported, and we'll say .toWords, which is a method that we can use to append to it, and we'll just say random number. So basically what this line of code is doing here is it's going to take our converter that we converted, which has the ability to transform numbers into its alphabetical form. So we use this toWords method to execute that logic right there. And let's create a function called getRandomNumber, and we'll just give it a parameter called randNum, and then we'll say return converter.toWords randNum. So let's create another function called generateImage, and this will also be an arrow function. And in here we're just going to use the setSource setter function that we used for our state right here, and then we're just going to pass in this URL. So it's https://robohash.org/Stefan- and then we're going to use some template literal strings here, and we'll pass in our variable, which was called randomAlphaNum. And just to make sure that it's working, we can console log out the source to see what it logs out. Obviously none of this works yet because I haven't ran the function, which is where we can use useEffect to take care of that. So we can say useEffect, and this will be similar to an arrow function, and in here we'll just say generateImage, run the function, and then pass in an empty dependency array so that it's going to run no matter what. As soon as your page loads, it's just going to run without any other specific conditions. And then underneath that we can create another function called handleChange and pass an e for its parameter, and this function will use the setUserInfo function from our state, and it's going to take the previous info and it's going to return the previous info, so whatever info was in it before, whatever data was stored in it previously, and then it's going to append onto it the new data so that it persists and saves the data from the previous instance. And we can just say e.target.value like so. And now let's go inside of our return statement here underneath our app component. In fact, we don't even need this div with the class name of app. Let's just get rid of that. And instead we're going to create a router, which is how we'll be implementing routes into our project. So now we'll just type routes, which is another non-self-closing tag, and then declare in here a singular route component and give it a path of /, which is just going to be the default element. We'll pass in prompt user, the prompt user component that we created. Oh, looks like I forgot to import that, so let's go do that right now. So import prompt user from ./component / prompt user. So now if we go back down here, it should auto complete that for us. And in here it's going to take in a few prompts. So it's going to take in a user object prompt, and in here we're just going to pass in our user info, which is this right here. And let's pass in a few more prompts. So we have an image source prompt, and we'll just pass in the source like that. And the source is the image source that we stored in our state up here at line 14. And then we'll have an on button click prop, which is just going to take the button clicked. And we're also going to have another prop called handleChange. And this is just going to be handleChange like so. And let's create a few more routes. So our second route will have a path of /resume. So this will lead us to our resume once we click that generate resume button. And the element or the component that we want to render for this route will be the resume component. So we'll just type that like so, and then we'll just pass in the user object for its prop, pass in user info. So it's pretty much the same one as the one above it. And then let's pass in image source equal to source. And now let's create one last route. This will have a path of an asterisk, which denotes that whatever the user types in, as long as it's not equal to this or this, then it's going to run the component. And this will act as our 404 page, quote unquote. It's not really going to throw off any error, but it's just going to warn the user that the page that they've requested to see doesn't exist. That's pretty much all it's saying. So we'll give it an element property once again, and this is going to render our non-existent page component. And that should be it for our routes. So let's go inside of our input item.jsx and write some code for that. So in here we can just do RAFCE, which is a React.js React Redux snippet shortcut that you can use to quickly generate these custom components. Alright, so now let's give this a few props. So we're going to have a label prop placeholder, which is going to have a default value of an empty string if no value is passed in for it. And name, onChange, type will have a default value of text. Whoops, I misspelled. And then isTextArea, this will determine which type of input we want our input to be. So it could be a regular input or a text area where you can resize it to however big or small you want it to be. And we'll just set the isTextArea property to a default value of false. Because in most cases we want it to be a regular input, not a text area, but in some other cases we might want to deviate from that. So in here, let's create a new div, give this a class name of row, and actually let's use template literal strings here. Whoops, template literal strings, and we'll say class name. So this is sort of like a fallback class name, so all these components are going to have their primary class name as row, but they're going to have also a secondary class name, which is whatever custom class name we pass in for it. And then let's go inside of this div and create another div, and this will be our input. So we'll say class name input, and in here we'll just do exclamation mark isTextArea. So this is basically saying that if the text area property prop is false, is set to false, then we want to render out an input, an HTML input element, and this is going to be a self-closing tag, self-closing input tag, and this is going to have an onChange of onChange, which is the value we gave for our prop up here. So this is going to be some sort of function that we want to fire off for our input whenever it changes. And it's also going to have a placeholder of placeholder, and name will just be name, type will be type, so I'm pretty much duplicating everything. Since we're using a ternary operator, we have to separate this with a colon and then declare our second conditional statement. So if the first condition isn't true, if the text area is set to false, then create a regular input HTML element. Otherwise, we want to create a text area element. And this is not going to be a self-closing tag, as you can see, since it has a closing and ending tag. And this will have an onChange of onChange once again, and the placeholder will just be placeholder, name will be name, and let's also create a label down here. So we'll just type label and pass in our label like so. And that should be it for our input item, if I didn't mistype anything. So let's go on to our next component. So let's also do REFCE, and in here we'll be importing a bunch of stuff. So let's import the useNavigate hook. So useNavigate, and we'll also need the link property from React Router DOM. And let's import our input item and have that autocomplete itself. And now we're just going to be importing a bunch of icons. And the first one we'll need is high arrow right from React icons /hi, and then let's import another one called AI outline mail. And since it has a prefix of AI, then we'll know that we have to go inside of React icons and then /AI. That's how we know which subfolder we have to delve into after that. And let's import BS telephone, and I don't mean that in a joking way. That's literally the prefix BS from React icons /BS. And let's import GI ages from React icons /GI. And you guys don't have to use all these icons. I'm just importing these so that I can style up our resume builder to make it look visually better. But you guys don't have to do that. It doesn't change the overall logic of the project. It just makes the project look better, but it doesn't make it any cooler on the back end. It still functions the same way, just not as visually attractive as before. And then we'll import FA birthday cake from React icons /FA. and then import MD outline school from React icons /MD. And then for our last icon, it's going to be CG website from React icons /CG. And let's also import animate CSS, so animate CSS. And let's import our resume as well. So we'll just say /resume, and there we go. That's all the imports we need. And let's go inside of this prompt user function and create a navigate instance of the navigate hook. So we'll just say const navigate equals use navigate, and we can give our function a few prompts. So it's going to have a handle change prompt, and then an on button click prompt, and make sure the O is capitalized, so on button click, image source, and we'll also need a user object. Alright, awesome. So now we can use some if statements and say, actually no, we don't need this on button click. I don't know why I passed that in there. We don't need that since it doesn't serve any purpose. Actually, yes we do, so we can give it an on button click prompt, and let's create a function called on button click, except have it be a lowercase o so that we don't mistaken it with this, which is a capital O except the same name. So on button click equals an arrow function, and here we'll just say alert, and then we'll just pass in the Windows dimension. This will be helpful when we start working on the responsive aspect of the project, when we start styling it up with CSS. So we might want to know what the dimensions of our screen size is. So we're going to do window.innerWidth, which will give us the width, and then we'll have the height, so window.innerHeight, and that should give us those two coordinate pairs. And also we will also want to navigate to resume, and what I mean by navigate is that we're going to have a button inside of our return statement in a little bit. I'm going to type it out, and it's going to have an event listener that's going to lead you to the resume component once we click on the button. Alright, so essentially what we have inside of our return statement here is just an empty fragment with a bunch of code inside of it, and I'll explain to you what all this is doing. So pretty much what we're doing is we're taking the input item that we imported up here and giving it its individual custom prompts, which you'll have to manually type out for each of the different features on our component. So we have the first name component, last name, email, phone number, etc. So we have to do that for every single input that we want to have on our resume registration form, I guess you could call it. And yeah, it's not that hard, but very tedious, and will definitely take you some time to type out all this. So I decided to just save you guys some time and paste it in there, because I don't think you guys will want to sit there for 25 minutes and just watch me type out all this code. And yeah, we're done with our prompt users component. Let's move on to our resume. Once again, do refce, and let's import the use effect hook and the use state hook, and we'll import AI outline mail from React icons AI, and let's import CG website from React icons /CG, and let's also import BS telephone. And inside of our resume, we want to pass in a few prompts. So we'll have the image source prompt, and we're also going to have the user object prompt. And inside of this, we'll want to create another piece of state. This will contain our skills, so set skills, and do use state, and then set it to an array for now, an empty array. And then inside of our return statement, we just want to return a div with a class name of resume card, which will make it pretty useful when we want to reference it inside of our CSS style and style it later on in the video. So let's create a sub div inside of this and give it a class name of resume card inner, and then we'll want to go inside of this div and create another div, give it a class name of section, and then section 1. So we want to have an h3 if this will auto close itself, there we go. Alright, so an H3 with a class name of full name, and in here we just want to grab our user object and then get the first name value inside of it, and then separate it with a space, and then do user object dot last name. So basically what this is doing here is it's going to go inside of our user object, find our first name, separate it with a space here, and then find our last name, and then append those two together to form our full name, essentially. So hopefully that made sense. And then we'll have a p tag, give this a class name of age, and as you can tell, this is going to tell us our age. So let's go inside of the user object and do .age, and we'll say years old. So however old we are, it's going to be a number and then years old. So let's have another element. This will be our profile picture, so we'll give it a class name of PFP to shorten things up a little bit. And then alt will just be, we'll use some template literal strings again, and we'll say user object dot first name, and then we'll use a quotation mark to represent possession, and we'll just say profile. So for example, if my first name was Kenny, then it's going to say Kenny's profile. Or if it was some other person's name, like, I don't know, John, then it's going to say John's profile. And this image element will have a source of image source, which we passed up here. And now let's escape outside of this section 1 div and create another div, and give it a class name of section, and then section 3. And yes, you guys are probably wondering why I skipped section 2, and that's because while I was in the middle of coding this project up, I had to do some slight modifications, and I had to switch section 2 and 3 around. So after section 3, we'll have a div with a class name of section 2. So let's create that right now. But they have to be swapped this way in order for our layout to look good. I could just easily just change the number and it should be fine, but let's just keep it the way it is right now and not make things any more confusing, since this video is already way longer than it should be. So let's create an H3 with a text that says summary, and then give this a p tag. Class name will be profile info, and then we'll just go to our user object and then select our profile. So this will be sort of like a brief description about who we are as a future worker at the company that we're interested in applying to work at. And now let's go into section 2, create a UL, give this an LI and a class name of phone number. And actually, before we go any further, let's take a look at how everything looks. So as you can see, we have all of our custom inputs being made, and when we click on the generate resume button, it shows up with this alert telling us how wide our window is, and then it takes us to this new page. And as you can see, it even generated us a randomly chosen profile picture. So if I were to refresh this every single time, it's going to give me a new profile picture, a new alien-like profile picture. So yeah, that's a pretty cool feature. And also when we refresh on this main page here, everything transitions in with this little sort of like bouncing effect, which is pretty cool, makes it a little more user-friendly and interactive. BS telephone is going to be our icon that we're using here, and it's a self-closing tag. So let's give this a class name of icon, and after the icon, let's do user object dot phone number. So we're going to have our phone number next to our telephone icon, and then let's create an LI, and also let me close this main sidebar to give us some more room to work with. So let's give this LI a class name of email, and then in here we'll pass in the icon AI outline mail, and this will also be a self-closing tag. Let's give it a class name of icon, and in here let's go inside of our user object once again and grab our email. So we're going to have our user email next to our email icon, and let's, for the last one, we'll say user object dot website. So this is basically saying, it's basically checking to see if our website exists inside of our object. If it doesn't exist, then it's going to do something else. But in this case, it's saying if the user object dot website exists, if it can be found, it has a valid value inside of the object. That's the best way I can explain it. Then we're going to simply return an li, give this a class name of website, and then the icon will be cg website. This will be a self-closing tag once again, class name will be icon, and then we just pass in our website name. And if the user didn't input in a website, if it's just an empty string, which means they didn't type in anything, then just don't do anything. And now let's move on to section 4. So div class name section 4, and in here we're just going to have an h4 with a class name of horizontal. And yes, I know that's a rather vague class name, and it's probably not going to help, and I'm probably not going to remember what it's talking about, but as long as it has some sort of class name that I can work with. So let's just give this skills and create a p tag, give this a class name of skill title, and then another class name for it, which will be info, and we'll just pass in user object dot skills. Alright, next let's give this a third class name of column, because we want to style them in groups and reduce the number of line of codes we have to type. And let's create another div, and let me zoom in as well so you guys can see better. Give this a class name of section 5. This will have a class name of column as well, and it's going to have an h4 with a class name of horizontal, and here it's just going to say experience, and a p tag which says user object dot experience. So it's going to grab our experience data from our user object and display it onto the browser. So we want to create section 6 and give this an h4 as well. I don't know why I type h3, so h4, and this will have a class name of horizontal, and this is going to show us our education, and we'll just pass in our p tag, give this a class name of university name. And by the way, at the time I'm recording this video, I'm only 15, turning 16 in 3 months, almost exactly 3 months from now, so I still have quite a few more years ahead until I begin university. But once I do, I hope you guys are finding a lot of value out of my video and it'll benefit you one day. But anyways, let's go to our user object, grab that university key, and just type that in there, and create another div. Give this a class name of section, you guessed it, section 7. And this will also have a third class name of column, and we'll just create another h4. I don't know why it didn't self-close itself, so h4. Give this a class name of horizontal. Hopefully I'm not misspelling anything and end up having to spend like 45 minutes looking for a simple typo that I made. Anyways, accomplishment is what we're going to have inside of the h4, and let me get rid of this space at the beginning. I don't know why I typed that there. And let's have a p tag, give this, and go inside of our user object and do user object.accomplishment. And for our last section, it's going to be section 8, so class name will be section 8, and we don't have to give it the third column class name. We just, since it's going to be a column on its own, so we don't have to do that. So this will have an h2. Let's give it a class name of grad year. So h2 meaning that it's going to be a little bit bigger than the rest, since the others are higher in number. The higher the number, the smaller it is. It goes from h1 to h6. So let's do class of, and then our graduation years. So we'll just go inside of our user object and do graduation year, like so. And then just to make sure that everything is working, I'm just going to give it a go and see how things look. Obviously it looks terrible right now without any CSS, but we probably won't have enough time to go through that in this video, so I'll make a second follow-up video and continue this series of the resume builder project. So my email, I'll just pass in my real email. Phone number, I don't want to disclose that, so I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Website, I forgot the URL to my website, so I'm just going to make up one. My birthday, I'm just going to put in a random birthday. I'm currently 15. One of my skills is coding. Experience, let's just say filming YouTube videos. graduation year, that really depends, but I'm just going to say 2025. And then accomplishment, let's just say hitting 400 subs, which is the example I used in my other video. University, I'm still thinking about it, but after some thinking, I'm thinking on going with UNC Chapel Hill. And then after I'm done with all that, let's just hit generate. And there we go. It displays all of our information on here. So now let's go to our non-existent page and code that up as well. So let's do refce. And in here we don't need any props or nothing too much at all. We're just simply returning a div with an h1 that says page not found in capital letters with an exclamation mark, just for emphasis. And then a p tag. Let's do try querying something else. And just for fun, let's just say p tag and then say hi question mark. And now if I were to visit a route that doesn't exist, so I'm just going to type in a bunch of random stuff like that and then hit enter, it's going to render out that component right there. And just to prove to you that this component is actually working, I can try modifying this and just saying like has been modified. And now if we go back, you're going to see that update change. So let's change it back to what it was before, just hi question mark. And yeah, that's pretty much all the functionality we need. So in the next video, we'll be diving into the CSS styles and making all this actually look a little better than it already does, because this kind of sucks without any CSS style. And so if you guys have any questions, make sure to leave them down below. And I just want to say a big thank you to you all for all of your support lately on my channel. It's been growing very rapidly lately, and it's just crazy to see how much progress we've made so far in this journey, and it's all thanks to you guys, and I just can't thank you guys enough. I really appreciate all of your support, and I hope you guys will continue supporting my channel, and I will do my very best to keep pushing out more contents to you guys. Other than that, have a nice day. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. And I'll see you guys in our next video, which will be coming very soon.